almost Easter at our house, and Mom is dying what the chicken laid. But we say, hey, Mom, don't sweat it. We've got a brand new way to decorate. No pots, no mess, no stress. Yes, yes, yes. It's Granddad's Easter egg coloring kit. So put down the oven mitt. It's Granddad's Easter egg coloring kit. Color eggs, just crayon it. He's a hoot, I'm a mess. He has stories, I have requests. We love to play photographic memories. It's time for Granddad and me. It's a grand life for Granddad and me.
All right, on today's show, Allie Grace, we've got some fun coming. We're going to have our usual photographic memories, but this time it's going to be a memory instead of memories, because we got one photograph we're going to look at today. But we got a friend of ours who's joining us to talk about that picture, so I'm excited about that.
Me too, and I have a bunch of questions that I want to ask you too.
Okay, okay, and I bet I have some questions I'm going to ask you after that. So let's go on with the show. Hey, we're going to get right into photographic memories.
Photographic memories, flashback photos by Bailey Studio.
Well, Grace, this is the one photographic memory we're gonna look at today. What do you see?
I see a very cool looking airplane. What I'm assuming is a bunch of mail because it says U.S. Mail, and I'm guessing the company is Expressway, or I think it says that.
Yeah, it actually says Railway Express.
Okay.
And our guest that we're going to have on in just a minute, he knows something about this, but more importantly, he knows what happened right after this. This picture, Allie Grace, was made in 1935.
Wow.
And it's delivering some things on it. Those boxes are actually being delivered. If you could see it closely, you'd see it says Sakowitz Brothers.
Okay.
And Sakowitz Brothers was a kind of a high-end, later on a department store in Houston that was really kind of famous. And so, but this in 1935, they were still kind of a smaller place, but they're getting a bunch of packages. So that's all I know about it. And I know it was November. Oh, you see down in the bottom right-hand side of the picture where it just says Bob Bailey?
Yeah.
Bob actually signed a few negatives on the negative itself. So we know when we see that, we know this is a really early one. All right, Allie Grace, I want you to meet somebody really special. This is my friend Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Hi, Allie.
Welcome to the show. We're glad you're with us, Andy. Hey, I was telling Allie Grace that you know everything in the whole wide world about this photograph we have over here. But tell us something about it. What do you know about this?
Absolutely nothing. But
well, thank you. That was Andy, guys. We'll see.
I assume that your dad took that photo.
Uh-huh.
And this is a 1930s version of FedEx.
Right.
Wow.
Because it's the Railway Express Agency. Well, this airplane is a Lockheed Electra Model 10. And it's quite a significant airplane because the Civil Aeronautics Board had recently, or a few years before, decreed that there would be no single-engine passenger carriers. At that time, the Boeing Model 40 would carry passengers along with airmail, and they just thought single engines weren't that reliable and it was risky, so they mandated that passenger carrying airplanes must have at least two engines.
See.
Now, this airplane, the Lockheed Electra Model 10, is rather famous for one reason, in the fact that it's the type of plane that Amelia Earhart flew.
Oh, wow.
And so it started when the Lockheed Aircraft Corporation was bought out, and they started building this airplane. And they did some wind tunnel testing at University of Michigan. At that time, it just had a single tail like many airplanes did. But in the wind tunnel tests, a young intern engineer by the name of Clarence Kelly Johnson said that it would be unstable, and later he joined Lockheed and they came up with a twin tail on this airplane. There's a constellation in the sky called the Seven Sisters, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's usually out in the western sky at night, and it's a group of 7 stars together. The brightest of these stars is called Electra, and that's where they got the name for the Lockheed Electra.
Is this the style of aircraft that Amelia Earhart was flying when she went down?
Yeah, she flew a little later model than this. I think it was a 10E. This is probably a Lockheed 10A. So this is an earlier version of that airplane. But if you're just looking at them side by side, you probably would have a hard time telling the difference. So
this is the kind of imprint that they would be looking for if they flew over looking for any kind of crash site or that sort. It would kind of look like this aircraft, huh? That's what they were looking for.
Right.
Wow.
How interesting. Now, how many passengers did this particular plane hold?
Well, it held, I believe, about 10 people.
Okay.
And one of the things as the DC-2 and DC-3 came online, they held more passengers, so their available seat mile cost, that is the cost per seat to operate the airplane per hour or mile, was a lot cheaper than the Lockheed. So eventually it fell out of favor with the airlines. But this was around close to World War II, and then during the war, it did have some military counterparts.
I see. Well, Andy, I really appreciate you being with Allie Grace and I today. It's just great to hear the background on this, and photographic memories are just important to us all. We're real excited that we have so many from the Bob Bailey Studio collection that we can share with folks, and you've made this one really come alive for us. So thanks for being with us, Andy. We appreciate you. Take care.
My pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, so I do have a couple questions that I would love to know. So I was thinking a lot about like communication, and like what we're doing now is we have computers and screens and cameras, and we're able to talk to each other in 2 completely different cities, which I think is such a blessing in so many ways. But growing up for you, if you didn't have a phone, you know, how would you have to like send a pigeon to your friend's house to, you know, be like, hey, you want to play outside? Like what would that look like for you?
Well, believe it or not, Alexander Graham Bell predated me by a couple of years. So I don't remember not having a phone.
Okay.
My grandmother's house, because she had like a boarding house, she actually had a payphone in we called it the hallway. It was she was an old 2-story house that at one time was a very cool house, and it had a parlor, and you'd come in off the porch into the main entry room, and in that room she had a payphone where all the different guys that stayed there could use the phone. So, but at our house we had the dial up phone, you know, that had you would dial it and to go back and you dial another number.
Okay. And now would you still, I'm going back to like, for some reason, like I Love Lucy, how they would talk to, what was that lady called? They'd be in the room and they would like connect it.
Yeah, with a operator.
Riverdale Jamazelle. Water will be here in 1 hour. Warn your neighbors.
So would you be able just to call somebody straight up, or would it have to go to an operator and they connect you?
Yeah, no, in our house, we would call directly to another person. Okay. Where your great grandmother grew up. When we would go visit there, they had a couple of people that had party lines on their. They would have a phone on their wall, kind of looked like what we used to have as a payphone, but they would pick it up and there'd be somebody that would answer, an operator that would answer, and they would just ask for a certain number. And then, but also when they would pick it up, somebody else may be talking because they would share a line. we
Oh, I
never.
think I would love that. That's where I would be
Yeah, you'd
all
spend all
the
your time
time.
listening. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
I think in those circumstances, people knew a lot more about their neighbors than their neighbors knew they knew about.
I
But
love that.
but no, we didn't have. We had you pick up the phone, you had a dial tone. Then
Okay.
later on, we got a push button phone, which was a big deal. That was instead of having to dial the phone, you could actually just punch a couple of buttons. And
Now, was that one still like connected to the wall or was it wireless?
landlines, yeah, I
Okay.
never. The idea of a phone that was not connected was came along pretty late in life
Okay.
for us. Yeah, it would start with a phone that would have a kind of be anchored somewhere, and then it would be a battery handheld set that you could walk around the house some, but you were always tethered to that landline that came into the house until, of course, cell phones came along. So
Okay.
yeah.
Now, I know like on a smartphone or, or an iPad or whatever, we have games that we play and all of that fun stuff. All of our entertainment basically comes from it. So other than like watching TV, what would like a fun activity be for you growing up?
Well, to tie back into the phone, there was no there was no sense of who was on the line. The phone would ring and you wouldn't know who it was, and there was no identifier like you have now. You can look down and see who's calling.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the very rude games that some of my friends and I would play, not very often, but you could call up people and say rude things to them, and they wouldn't know who it was. So it was like that was a game that my folks weren't aware, or if they had been, they would have been very upset with me playing. Until I saw a movie, Allie Grace, about these two girls that were playing something like that, and they would call people up, and they would in the movie they said, "I saw what you did, and I know who you are."
It starts as a game, and there's no end in fright.
Go ahead. Close your eyes and pick a name. Pick a name? Any name. I saw what you did, and I know who you are.
And in the movie, this guy had just killed somebody.
Okay.
And so he started looking for the girls. Well, I was about 11 when I saw that movie. I never made any prank calls. That ended my prank call days. But go back. I'm sorry, I'm old. Go back to your question about I got all off on the.
Well,
on
that
the
was
prank
a fun
phone call.
activity. I mean, even for us growing up, it was star 67 is what you would do to make sure that it said no caller ID. And so that was like our little cheat code that we could do.
Okay.
You can't do that anymore, but we would. I mean, growing up, we'd get our home phone and you'd dial the number and then star 67 after it, and you would call like a fast food restaurant and try and order clothes or what. I mean, that was like the funniest thing to us, to be like,
right.
Do you have tank tops? And you're like calling Panda Express or something, and you hang up like, oh my gosh, we got him. It was so silly. But oh yeah, or you could call your friends and like yell in the phone and then hang up, and they're like, who was that? It's just silly stuff. It's harmless, but it was like a sense of thrill. We did the same thing.
Isn't that funny? That's so funny that it transcends generations like that. I love that.
Oh yeah. I don't know how people would do it today.
Right.
But kind of one of my last questions, you grew up with way less screens than I did, right? I don't remember how old I was, because I remember my dad had a BlackBerry and my mom had I think it was like a slide phone. And then I don't know exactly how old I was whenever the iPhone came out, but so I kind of had that cool transition time of going without and then with. But obviously now that's kind of where everything is. If you had the opportunity, would you go back to like a zero technology world and not have any of the screens that we have today and just kind of start from square one, or would you keep it how it is?
Well, in thinking of that, I I didn't I was so impacted by technology from a little bitty kid. You know, I didn't see a television until I was 3 years old, and a guy brought one to our house for the weekend, and I actually saw a television, and I thought it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen, and I had this relationship with television from that point on. He took it away, but then it wasn't long before we had our own 21-inch television, which was a big deal. We were lower middle class family in a little house, a little one-story house, but we had a 21-inch black and white television, and I would uh, I would start my Saturday morning about this far from the TV, uh, waiting for it to come on, and then the rest of my life, I watched too much television when I should have been doing homework and other things, and then by the time I was 16, I was working with screens and in the studio doing films, and then and then by the time I was 18, I was working at a television station, working with screens all the time, and then I was editing TV shows and things before long. So all my life, technology's been a really big part of my life, and the idea of going back without it, I don't know how far back I'd have to go. I mean, I don't know if you consider radio back in the 40s and
I think
30s.
more like social media, smartphones. I guess that's kind of the big one, like being able to have the world in your pocket.
Yeah. I don't know. You know, loneliness is such a big deal to so many people, especially my age, and if they've lost their loved ones and they're alone. The idea of connecting, unplugging things from anybody, I I have a hard time imagining that. I see all the I see all the bad effects. I see all the isolation it causes. I know that, you know, being with people in a church environment, in a movie environment, in a live theater environment, I just believe to my toes that that's so healthy. I think being in a dark room by yourself playing on a screen is not our best. You know, I don't believe that's the best we can offer ourselves and others. But at the same time, to take it away, I don't know. I think
It's a
I don't know.
hard thing to think
It
about,
is.
you know,
It's very
because
hard.
it makes stuff like this possible, right? You and I are
Yeah,
able to communicate at
that's
any
true.
time. And
Yeah.
so for me, I think I would keep like a landline phone and
Really?
even like a cell phone that isn't a smartphone. So I would probably get, is
Wow.
it called like a Nokia, is that what they were called? I would get that. I mean, I'm really close to just getting a flip phone again. I really am. I would be so okay with unplugging and being
Wow.
almost forced to go see people in person. I think for me that would help my isolation and my doom
Mm,
scrolling and all of that fun stuff that you can get sucked into. I would so much rather experience things in person and be able to talk to people face to face rather than calling them or anything like that. I just love it. I think face to face contact is so good for me, and being outside and being around people is so good. And technology for me can really, I'm so okay being by myself because I have all these thousands of people that I can look at and
right.
watch videos and stuff.
Right.
I would unplug in a minute. I personally would.
I love that. I find that incredibly encouraging. And wow, I love that, Allie Grace, that you would even entertain that thought. And I think that's so healthy. I hope that becomes viral. That would be that would be
It is a thing right now. A lot of
is it?
people my age are getting, a lot of people are, it's like a Barbie flip phone. It's a pink flip phone. I literally have it in my Amazon cart. I'm so close to doing it. And you can put your SD card in it, and so you can still get like calls and you can text people, but there's no social media on it.
Wow.
I would love it. I really would. I see so many fun, positive things through social media. I really do. I've learned so much through it. I get to see people do all sorts of things. I think there's so many positives. I also think there's so many negatives too, just like with anything. And so I don't know. I would just love to be done with it and just be like, no, if you need to hang out, go outside, hang out, like go meet up with your friends. Like I would love it.
Well, I think one of the things that I would love this show to do is to kind of follow that process, especially with you as we come together and doing things more technically, but also go apart and do things more on our own like that. I think for just humankind, I think that's a very encouraging thought. And to hear you say that there are others out there that are sort of thinking that same thing. I understand the motivation, but I think it's incredibly encouraging. Thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
telling me that.
I mean, I think it's a big thing today. People are like, "Oh, I need to go touch grass," right? Because you realize you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have been inside or I have not communicated. Like, I need to go touch grass." Is that even a thought that ever crossed your mind growing up? Like, "Oh, I need to get grounded and like go touch some grass."
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Um
I would not have guessed that. I would have been
really?
like, in my head, you were like, "Yeah, I was always touching grass," like I was always outside.
No, well, yeah. I mean, the concept of I got to get out of here and go. I mean, from the time I was a child, not just in my working years, when you're working a lot, and when I would work long, long hours, oftentimes till maybe 2 in the morning sometimes. And, but the idea that I needed to stop and go do something, for me, I would play tennis. I was real blessed to have a couple of tennis buddies and we would get out and back then I used to think hitting something was, you'd get, you'd get some aggression out by hitting something whether it was a golf ball or a baseball or a tennis ball. But also, yeah, just getting out in the fresh air. My mom, I'd be in watching TV, a kid, and she would force me to go outside. But I always enjoyed it. I never went out, outdoors, even on my own, that I didn't just, love nature, just the whole idea of things that are, that God's world out there is so beautiful. There's so many kind of miraculous things, whether you're just laying on the grass, looking up at clouds and trying to imagine what that cloud looks like, or, all the things that you get from just being outside is just, you really can recharge your batteries, I think.
I
And I
agree.
and I think we so need to be in touch with nature in that way. And I think that's again, I think that's something God puts in us. That He created that nature, and I think it's you know one time I thought that the whole thing about Adam and Eve, from God's point of view, God made all this stuff on different days, and then He creates on the sixth day. He creates Adam and then Eve, and I think he was creating audience. I think he wanted somebody, why make all this wonderful stuff and not have somebody to look at it and appreciate it and say, wow, God, that's really cool. And I think when we go out into nature and we appreciate those things, I think we're becoming that audience that God just made us to be,
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff.
Love it.
So fun talking to you, kiddo.
It's always fun talking to you too.
I like the way this show's going. I hope other people join us in liking it, and maybe they'll have comments too. Maybe some of the stuff we've talked about has surprised them or encouraged them or made them think of things, and they'll write down in the comments for us.
I would love to hear if anyone watching would be willing to turn off the phones and the technology and go back, and why or why not. I would love to hear those stories.
Yeah, the only problem is that we won't know that they're doing it because they won't be seeing our show because they've turned it on.
They're like, you're right. I should turn off technology.
Wait.
Wait, not yet, guys. Stay for a little bit longer. Not yet.
Turn off everything else, but watch Granddad and Me. Come back to Granddad and Me.
It's a grand life.